The Ole Miss Rebels kick off with the Arkansas Razorbacks. Well, that's creeping up pretty close. We're going to talk to Michael Katz about that and the college football weekend as a whole.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member. We bring in Michael Katz from the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal to talk about the game and college football as a whole, honestly. Thanks again for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and please give us a like, subscribe, and comment on your way out. Check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college and pro, they're available. Whatever you want, they will likely have. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned for the highlights later in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, so Michael, one interesting thing about this game, the storylines that are happening. I think the slow start for Ole Miss, that would be a storyline that's going to be picked up on over the next couple of days. And the quarterback situation, what's going on there. There's a lot of little stories out there. I don't know if there's a big overarching one, though.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if there was one, it's what is Ole Miss's defense going to do against an offense that can actually do something? With all due respect to Georgia State and Kentucky, I mean, Kentucky's offense they got some talented players. Don't get me wrong, but I that seems to still be a work in progress. And obviously, Georgia State was outmanned, and I imagine we will talk about this later. But I think Arkansas's offense provides a challenge that Ole Miss hasn't seen yet. I know people have thoughts on Bobby Petrino, but he's really good at what he does. He can scheme him up as well as anyone. So I guess for me, that's probably the biggest one. And I guess the other thing would be, can Austin Simmons limit the turnovers? Better teams are going to make Ole Miss pay for those turnovers. Arkansas maybe is one of those teams that can make them pay. I think for me, those are the two things that at least are kind of on my radar right now.
Yeah, Arkansas's offense, if the Kentucky game happens just like it did, it's 14-0, and you have the ball. And if you punt the ball, Arkansas can get it back and make it 21-0, and the game is over. That's the danger with playing with somebody's offense that is pretty good. Bobby Petrino, he's 20 years in at being relevant and being good at what he does, and he is a master at putting a defense on skates. If you remember 2023 against Texas A&M in the second half, he made Max Johnson look like a left-handed Tom Brady out there in the second half, and it was a blocked field goal away from winning that game against an 11-win Ole Miss team. And in Arkansas, everybody remembers Ole Miss scored 63. Nobody talks about the fact that Arkansas scored 31.
Yeah, no, I think that's the thing too, is 63 points is great, but 31 in most games is not going to end well for you. So yeah, I mean, listen, and Taylen Green, I believe, got hurt in last year's game, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
I remember the
he got his knee banged up in the week before against Tennessee when they beat the Volunteers. Then he got knocked out of the Ole Miss game. Some point either late in the second quarter or early in the third quarter, he got knocked out.
Yeah, and so I mean, then the backup actually looked pretty good, if I remember correctly. Yeah, listen, they're talented. I know that in this transfer portal era, it's hard you don't see guys stay at places for a long time. And I know Taylen Green's only been there. This is only his second year, but at least for me, I'm a Mountain West guy. I've been watching Taylen Green start football games for 4 years. He started 2 years at Boise State. This is his second year at Arkansas. He is a veteran guy, and he's always been really talented. So, there aren't a lot of 4-year starters in college football, regardless of where you've been starting those games. I think he's fascinating. I'm really interested to see what Pete Golding can do to slow what Bobby Petrino wants to do down.
Yeah. My question, and looking at what's going on, of how to stop a Bobby Petrino offense, which, at this point I've seen the Bobby Petrino offense enough to know that a little bit. you need to stop the running back run. It's okay if Taylen Green breaks one throwing the ball or breaks one running the ball. If that running back is allowed to get going, Bobby Petrino can get into his bag and that offense becomes unstoppable.
And I think that, and I know that I asked Lane about this a couple of days ago. The run defense numbers are not good right now for Ole Miss. No. I think it's about 181.5, something like that.
They're giving up about 5 explosives per game. That's about 100 yards of that average too. For most of the games they're good.
And then
they have those lapses, and all of a sudden there goes Rashad Amos for 35 yards around the end.
Yeah, and so but Lane was pretty quick to note that game plans and circumstances of games will sort of skew those numbers depending on how a game is going and taking the air out of the ball. Or making a team want to throw, things like that. So I don't think the run defense is nearly as bad as the numbers indicate. I think it can actually probably be pretty good. But this is going to be an interesting test because Mike Washington's averaging almost 11 yards a carry. He is very good. And Braylon Russell, he's a talented guy too.
That's the big kid, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's like 250. Yeah. I mean, he ran for 300 some yards last year as a true freshman. He's kind of taken a back seat so far, but he's a really talented player. You mix that with the things that Taylen Green can do on the ground. Again, another guy averaging almost 11 yards a carry. That run game is going to be that's hard to stop. I think we are going to learn more about Ole Miss's run defense in this game than we have at all through the first two for sure.
Which is fine, which is by design, honestly. Whoever put the schedules together had the forethought to just like ramp it up each and every single week. Now we can argue whether or not Arkansas and Tulane where they are on the list, but they're right about the same. And the beginning ramp of the first 5 games for Ole Miss is kind of exactly what you want.
Yeah, no, I mean, last year, and this has been brought up ad nauseum at this point, but those first 4 games didn't really give you a ramp up. It was just okay, let's put up a lot of points and boost the numbers, and it's ultimately not going to tell you that much about this team. I feel like through that second game, I feel like I learned a lot about Ole Miss being able to win a tight game. That's more than I knew in 4 games, the first 4 games last year, period. And I think we're going to learn a lot about this team in week 3 too, with it being a big SEC opponent.
Yeah, I figure last year's team, as good as they were, as talented as they were, I should say, as talented as they were, I think last year's team loses that game to Kentucky.
100%. I've been thinking about that. Like for as loaded as that roster was, and as insane and gaudy as the statistics were, Ole Miss didn't win close games. They did in 2023. They won all the close games. In 2024, again, 3 losses by 13 points. That's a play here and there. I think one of the biggest things is this team can close out at least through 2 games, and it's a small sample size. They can run the ball to close out a game. Imagine if they had been able to do that last year. They're probably 11-1, maybe 12-0 if they can finish off games running the ball. I mean, it's as simple as that. When you can take the air out of the ball and you are not worried about having to put the ball in the air late and risk the clock slowing down, and you can chew up clock and get field goals. And listen, it's not always going to be pretty, but when you can run the ball the way Ole Miss is proven to these, especially against Kentucky, I was really impressed by that. I saw the stat. I went through the scorebook from last year. In the fourth quarter last year against Kentucky, Ole Miss ran the ball 6 times for 1 yard in the fourth quarter. Yeah. This year it was 13 carries for 60 yards. They did not have a single passing yard in the fourth quarter. And I know part of that was, Austin got hurt and they're trying to run the ball, but they were able to run the ball when Kentucky knew it was coming. And I think that's huge.
Yeah, that was the major question that I had going into the season. Ole Miss needing to run the ball when the other team knew that you were going to run the ball, and they just couldn't do anything to stop it. Yeah, they could. Everybody points to that 3-and-out series that Ole Miss ran the ball 3 times and Austin got hurt. And they pointed this like, oh, you got too conservative and threw that. And it's like, well, the next series they did exactly the same thing and went down and scored a field goal that put the game away.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always going to work perfectly, but I think if you're playing the odds game, the number of times it worked for Ole Miss, you will take that any day of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, when we come back, We will talk to Michael about the Arkansas game and what's going on. And then the third segment, we're going to talk about college football across the country. Stick around for that. But first, I do want to let you know, this episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward was an early in the first quarter run by Kewan Lacy for about 20 yards. Listen, it doesn't sound like much, but Kewan had 138 yards and a touchdown in the game for the Rebels in their road opener against Kentucky, a game that Ole Miss ultimately won 30-23. After a slow start, Ole Miss kind of took over that game, outscoring the Cats 30-13 after falling behind 10-0 early. And so much of that was on Kewan Lacy. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcatcher you're listening to, and give it a 5-star review. It costs you absolutely nothing, but keeps all of this free. If you want more, join the Insiders program and the subtext link down below. No trolls, 14-day free trial, and the easiest way to cancel ever. Give it a try. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is ready for you. All right, so Michael, going into this Arkansas game, you came out, you got the injury to Austin Simmons, and the games are happening. You know, I don't know one way or another what's games, what's not. All I know is that this staff, for whatever reasons, like to have a little fun with the injury report from time to time. That happens. But in this game, let's just say Austin Simmons starts, but the sprained ankle is there, and Trinidad Chambliss has a package as a run. What do you think this game looks like?
You know, I think that if last week there seemed to be a concerted effort to have Austin a major part of the run game, and he looked pretty good in the run game for the most part.
Yeah.
Obviously had that touchdown, and he is able to do. He is absolutely able to perform with his legs, but with the ankle being what we saw, and obviously he came back in the game, and we talked to him Saturday afterward, and he said it wasn't a big deal. Maybe it's a little bit more Chambliss in certain situations when the quarterback run is in play. Obviously when you put Chambliss in, a defense is going to probably know what's coming, which, puts you a little bit of a disadvantage. When Austin's in, you don't know what's going to happen, but I just don't think you can put Austin in those sorts of situations if he is not 100%. At least when he went down, I was getting texts from people that said it looked awful and that it was horrible. And then of course he comes back out there and he's, he takes the final snap and whatnot. And he walks by me on the field and he looks all right. But this is a marathon, not a sprint too. Obviously you want to win this game. You need to win this game. But I don't think you can, if he is not good to run the way he was before he got hurt last week, I don't know if you can put it in those situations.
Yeah, it's going to be up to Charlie Weiss Jr. to call the game and to use him. I think Trinidad Chambliss is going to have a package because the weakest part of this Arkansas team is their defensive line, which means they're going to run the football, which means Trinidad Chambliss, they're going to run the quarterback. So I think there's going to be a chance that you're going to see more Trinidad than you think, but it's not because of Austin's injury necessarily. I think the game's going to dictate that a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, again, according to Lane, Austin was good to go back in on that second to last drive, but the game was asking to be run, right? It was a run game, and it's like, okay, well, let's not, let's have the runner out there, the guy who we know is going to be able to do these sorts of things right now. Even if the defense knows what's coming, can they stop it? They couldn't.
Yeah. And Kentucky does have a better defense than Arkansas does. Arkansas doesn't have a slouch. They have SEC athletes, good players over there, but they're not going to be more of a challenge than you saw last week when you were able to run the ball like you did. So I think in this game, honestly, looking at it, I think this is a Kewan Lacy game. I think the stat winner between Kewan Lacy and Mike Washington is going to determine how this game goes.
Yeah, I mean, Kewan Lacy has been – I don't think he could have drawn it up any better for his start to this season. Just looking at some of I was on Pro Football Focus today. I'm big on that. I know you're not always a numbers guy or sabermetrics guy, but one number that really stood out to me was he's averaging 3.8 yards after contact. That is a guy that, we knew he was explosive. We had heard all that he had this burst. But I think the power and contact balance has really surprised me. Last year's leading rusher, with Henry Parrish Jr., he averaged under 3 yards per yards after contact. So what you are seeing with Lacy is not something Ole Miss was able to do last year. And I think it's, again, his, you love the burst, you love the home run play, but I think his ability to also get you those hard 3, 4, 5 yard gains is really impressive.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a funny thing to think of last year, but if Ole Miss had Quinshon Judkins, they might win the national title, just like Ohio State did. That position was literally all that they were lacking.
Yeah, and it's, I know there were a lot of people have thoughts on how the running back situation went down last year, but regardless of what you thought on how it should have been handled, it was very clear that they did not have the sort of dog that they needed when it came time. Let's be honest, Quinshon Judkins was better than anybody running back they had on their roster last year. That's not a hot take. I think that's pretty clear. And he is a big reason Ohio State just won the national championship. When you can put teams away, and Quinshon, I know his last year at Ole Miss, I guess numbers wise was a little bit down, but he was able to wear opponents down at the end of games. And Ole Miss just lacked that last year. And at least as of now, it seems like they have a guy who can do those same sorts of things.
Yeah, and I think the running backs that were picked up this year, it was a little bit more thoughtful. I think last year it felt, whether or not they did it or not, it felt like a scatter shot. Let's take these 4 players and see if anything sticks. That's the way it came across. This year feels like it was much more intentional. First of all, you get Logan Diggs, fully healthy and all of that. So he's on the roster too. So that helps. But Damian Taylor, I like him as a short yardage back. I know that people hadn't seen him, but he kind of fits that Wildcat goal line persona that he's probably going to do. Again, the contact balance and everything with Kewan's amazing. And we hadn't seen Shakai Mills-Knight yet, have we?
No, not that I can remember. But that, like, again, you've got 4 games hypothetically to play in them, and where you can keep his eligibility. That there's some moment coming for him.
Yeah, I think the Citadel would be a nice one, because in a perfect world, Ole Miss is, was it 7-2 or 8-1 or something like that, and you're trying to get an extra bye week before Florida and Mississippi State. I think that's a good game for Shakai Mills-Knight to get some carry and Caleb Cunningham to appear on the scene. All right, before we take a break, there's the 3 players that transferred in from Arkansas to Ole Miss. One, the legendary now Patrick Kutas, that everybody seems to have an opinion about. The second is Jalen Braxton, who has not seen the field just yet, and Luke Haas, who has been injured all the way through. But the only one of those 3 that are on the injury report this week is Jalen Braxton, and the rumor is he's going to play. It looks like Luke Haas is going to be there. This offensive line with 12 personnel, if you are using 6 to pass rush, which makes sense if you have a quarterback that's going to be playing on a gippy ankle, that actually makes a little sense. I think 12 personnel might be the move, but I don't know if Luke Haas is, in shape enough for that yet.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious to see how effective he is going to be in inline situations and whatnot, assuming he plays. But you know as well as I do that the injury report is a quote unquote fluid situation. It could look completely different tomorrow or Saturday. Guys have appeared out of nowhere at times, but if nothing else, it's got to be a good sign. I mean, he was one of your big hauls. Listen, Trace Bruckler looked really good last week.
He looked the part.
When you got him, and we know what Daquan Wright can do when he's good to go. I mean, that's pretty good. And then Caleb Odom, obviously, I mean, that's a good monster at tight end that can all do different things. If you got Luke Haas back, it's going to open up his offense. I think not, but I think it's going to help with some too.
Yeah, it should be pretty interesting. All right, we're going to take a break real quick. When we come back, we're going to talk to Michael about college football around the country. This is a surprisingly good week, but we'll talk about talk to Michael right after this. But first, when I'm on top of my hydration, I notice everything works better. My energy, my mood, my focus, even my skin. But getting enough fluids isn't every day a good, easy thing. That's why I've been loving Drip Drop. Drip Drop is doctor developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes in half the sugar of the leading sports drink. My go-to flavor right now is cherry limeade. I think it's a game changer after a hot walk in this just steaming Florida sun. And it's made that an entirely better experience whenever I do my walks every day. Right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word. Also, it's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streak, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered the most. Let's break it down. For Ole Miss, Harrison Wallace delivered in a big way. It was 4th and 1, and Ole Miss was down 10-0. Everything was going sideways. When the pressure was on, he came through. No hesitation, no delay, with a 55-yard reception. If you've been watching week after week, this performance was not a fluke. Harrison Wallace is on a streak, and he looks to continue that on Saturday against the Arkansas Razorbacks. And just like Harrison Wallace delivered for the Ole Miss Rebels, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you can save Saturday, your order, stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250 or $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday and keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. The promo period runs through November 18th. All right, Michael. We got an interesting college football week. And for the people that doesn't know, Michael's a good Southern California man. He's USC. So we're going to start with, of course, Texas A&M versus Notre Dame. This is an interesting game to me. Okay, Michael? Listen, if you want to get past the Texas 8-4 jokes that seemingly happens every single year, you have to win games like this. And I think at the end, I literally think at the end, this could be the year that all of a sudden you look up and Texas A&M won the game in South Bend.
You know, when you started that talk, I thought we were going to be talking about US Big Ten matchup. I cannot wait for it this week. But no, I can't think of anything I'm going to be less tuned in for than USC and West Lafayette, Indiana, with all due respect. But no, I think, you know, Notre Dame's weird. It's, you know, they've already had a bye because
that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't play week 0, and then they play against Miami, and that's a tough game, and then they don't play again. I still don't really know how much I know about Notre Dame right now, other than track record and the job Marcus Freeman's done. A&M, yeah, you know, it's if they're ever gonna do it, this seems like it would be the time, right? Mike Elko is doing all the right things. He's saying all the right things. But at some point, you've got to get over the hump, right? This seems like a really big one for him. It's going to be an interesting game. And what if Notre Dame starts 0-2?
Well, that means there would be a true 12-team playoff because you're not holding one of those spots for Notre Dame. Because if they lose 2, they're probably going to lose 3, which means they would be out of the playoff altogether.
Yeah.
Hey, this could be the year that USC wakes up and takes care of them.
No, I know what's about to happen in South Bend, Indiana, buddy. I've seen this one before.
So it should be interesting. I will be watching that game intently. at least the score of that, but there's some other great games that weekend. You got Tennessee and Georgia, which if it's ever going to happen for Josh Heupel, this feels like the year, but Kirby feels like he owns him at this point.
Yeah, and I know that Georgia, I think, won by 3 touchdowns last week, but maybe not their best performance against Marshall. You have to imagine he's going to have them all riled up. He always finds that edge for his teams to have. And as good as Tennessee has been, I think Tennessee is very good. I still don't know how good they are. Like, yeah, they look great against Syracuse. And I don't, what does that really mean yet? I don't know how good Syracuse is this year. If it was last year's Syracuse team, yeah, you feel pretty good, but we don't know what this team is yet. And I think they had an FCS opponent last week. Was it East Tennessee State or something? So yes. It's hard to get much from that game. I do know that it appears that they won the quarterback trade as of right now with UCLA. Yeah, I mean, if this is Georgia's offense hasn't really gotten going yet. Gunnar Stockton hasn't really
they played Austin Peay last week.
Yeah.
They scored 28 points on Austin Peay. So obviously there are some concerns.
He's a talented guy. We know he can run. At some point they got to put it together. So maybe this Tennessee offense is as explosive as it has looked. And if it is, and if you can hang, 30 on Georgia, you're feeling pretty good. But man, at some point, like, that creeping doubt has to come in the back of your head if you're Josh Heupel, and if it's a close game late, and Kirby is probably going to pull it off because he always does.
Yeah. If you're Tennessee, you can't lose to the G on the side of the helmet. I always talked about Lane whenever they played Alabama. You can't lose to the numbers on the side of the helmets. You got to play the game. All right, 2 more games real quick. We'll start off with Florida and LSU. Last year, Florida beat LSU because LSU was down an offensive lineman. It looks like they're going to be down an offensive lineman again. And Florida's D-line is no slouch. And after last week, you have to think that Florida's going to come out just full of piss and vinegar.
LSU wasn't particularly inspiring last week either. I know they were coming off a huge win at Clemson, but was it 23-7? I think something like that against Louisiana Tech. It was never a game that it felt like LSU was going to lose, but yeah, they didn't win as handily as they probably should have given the level of competition and being at home. I'm curious to see how they come out. Obviously, it's I think that's the night game in Death Valley, so it's always going to be hard. But if there's anything that we learned about Florida under Billy Napier, it's that they rally around him pretty well. I mean, they rallied like crazy at the end of last year. So the reason he still has a job, because they won like 4 or 5 in a row at the end of last year, and really kind of saved them. I think, listen, we're both online enough that we see there's already stories about what's his buyout, coaching lists. It's already over, right? According to
John Gruden to Gainesville.
Yes, it's groomer season. That's how you know that's in full swing of things. But this would not surprise me if Florida comes out guns a-blazing and looks really good. I don't know if they win, but it's going to look a lot better, I imagine, than it did last week, just because, if history is any indicator, they play really hard for Billy Napier.
Yeah, and the game of the week in the SEC, by the way, and I'm dead serious when I say this, so everybody can roll their eyes and laugh all they want to, but it's South Carolina and Vandy. That game has a chance to be absolutely fantastic. I watched the end of the Vanderbilt Virginia Tech game. Vanderbilt literally made that team quit. Like 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, they laid down. This is a different type of Vandy team. Both Vandy and South Carolina have played Virginia Tech. So that's there. The game's at Williams-Brice. If Vandy wins this game, if Vandy beats South Carolina, they are going to go into Tuscaloosa likely 5-0. I mean, it's crazy to think of, but it's on the table.
Yeah, and let's be honest. Like, I know South Carolina won its game handily last week against South Carolina State, but haven't really been firing on all cylinders offensively yet. Lenore Sellers hasn't looked like the guy that we thought he was to after the great things he did last year. It's been a little bit disjointed offensively for them. But you look at what Vanderbilt did again last week back in Virginia Tech. I think they outscored them 34-0 in the second half. I mean, they just absolutely put their foot on their throat and just said, "You're not getting back up. Like this is it.
Yeah, you're done."
Yeah, that is a tough team. We talk a lot about Diego, obviously, and he's so much of that emotion of the team, and obviously. Clark Lee knows defense too, and I know that a lot of guys back. That's just a tough team that I think has not just Diego Pavia's identity, but I think they've taken on Clark Lee's toughness too.
All right, Michael Katz from the Northeast Mississippi Tupelo Daily Journal. What do you got going on this week at the DJ, man?
Currently finishing up an in-depth numbers look at how in shop. A couple stories this week. One Kewan Lacy and partly involving his blocking, which you might have seen some clips going around of how good he is at that. Talked to him about that a little bit earlier in the week. It was really fascinating how excited he got about his pass blocking. He loved it. Just we've got our day content coming out with our edge, who has the edge, these positional group, keys to the game and stuff like that. So just kind of the typical game day stuff and in 48 hours or so, 50 hours or so,
it'll kick off in earnest. Anyway, thank you for stopping by, man, and we'll talk to you next week, bud. All right, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves in offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. It helps the show. It's completely free. Your support means the world to us. In another big moment for Locked On, college football fans Locked On and Fire TV, they're presenting College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson and former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts as well. As a college football preview only Locked On can do, catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season only on Fire TV. Hotty toddy, everybody, and remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.